sequel number 112. REREDOS in the new cathedral and the 1919 Synod of the Diocese of Uganda, Uganda Diocese. Welcome to the celebration of 150 years of the Church of Uganda, celebrated through history. And now we are in the year 1919, celebrating the Synod of that year, immediately after the consecration of the new cathedral. The Synod opened on Tuesday, the 16th of September 1919. The delegates were already in town, having come for the consecration of the cathedral. Amongst the many issues, they made alterations to some canons of the church. The Synod also reviewed the finances of the church, following the tabling of cost of the Treasurer's report. The Synod discussed education issues, following the British Protectorate creation of the Advisory Council of Education earlier on in 1917. The church had got charged with the initiation of education policies, and therefore the British Protectorate came in with policies to operate in all missionary schools. The British Protectorate government started laying down a common syllabus, and they also began to set examination regulations and certification. The 1919 Synod also discussed missionary work across the diocese. The Women's Central Conference tabled a report on the moral and social problems affecting the church. The Synod discussed the labor problems, especially dealing with the church estates. The Synod discussed in the Women's Report on the moral and social problems. And the delegates on the 18th of September 1919, which is, I think, the last day of the Synod, they erupted over an issue, the REREDOS. The debate on the question of the REREDOS in the new cathedral was raised. Now, the question is, what is a REREDO? A REREDO is a decoration or an inscription placed behind the altar. These ones are usually found in the Roman Catholic Church or in what we call High Church. And these inscriptions are usually religious images, and they are usually placed behind the altar. And they are usually not attached directly to the altar table, but on the wall behind it. And so that is the REREDOS which brought a problem. The African delegates were not so much concerned. It was the missionary delegates. They had very strong feelings and they raised them. Some the REREDOS, others against the REREDOS. The REREDOS, as I've just mentioned, were, because of their association with the High Church or the Roman Catholic Church, were therefore seen as strange in a Protestant church. The Christian Missionary Society or the Church Missionary Society, call them the missionaries in general, are the ones who influenced this debate. And they expressed themselves on the issue freely. Now, at last, Bishop Willis called for a vote. to either remove the REREDOS or the REREDOS to stay. And so they voted. 144 members voted for the REREDOS to stay. 127 delegates voted for their removal. So the bid to remove the REREDOS was lost. The REREDOS stayed until 1960, when they were removed and replaced with a wall, which wall you see today. I've tried to bring you the pictures of the REREDOS and the actual inscriptions that were disturbing, like flowers, those are the REREDOS. That is what the problem was. Now, the next synod was slated for the second, after 2 years, so that would be in 1921. And so the delegates dispersed and returned home. I think it was very wise for Bishop Willis to take a decision on this by making the members who had debated to take a vote. I think that was very wise of him, and therefore the 1919 Synod came to a close. One particular item that we cannot miss in this particular sequel is the fact that there was a baptism, a very interesting baptism in the Huntington Chapel. This happened much later on the 21st of November 1919, on a Sunday. Now, Cyril Lewis Travers Huntington, a grandson of Bishop Huntington, was the first child to be baptized in the Huntington Chapel after its consecration. This grandson was baptized by Archdeacon Venerable Baskerville. The Reverend Jill was also part of the service. Now, Cyril Lewis Travers Huntington's father was Paul Huntington, who had lived in Uganda under the British colonial service for 15 years. Now, at the time, he was at the rank of district commissioner. Don't forget that earlier on we saw the same family of the Huntingtons handing over the Holy Communion elements. Now they are also strategically taking the first baptism, because after all, the chapel was named after the first bishop of Equatorial Africa, the Eastern Equatorial Diocese, the very first bishop, James Huntington, who was killed by Chief Luba on the instructions of Kabaka Mwanga, and whose remains were later returned to Buganda, or brought to Buganda and buried at Namirembe Cathedral. So now in 1919, a chapel was dedicated to him, the Huntington Chapel. And that's is sequel 112. May the good Lord bless us all.